Optimus Prime is one of the most iconic characters in fiction, and his portrayal in the Michael Bay Transformers films was no exception. He instantly became iconic and, in my opinion at least, became one of my favourite versions of the Autobot Leader to date. However, one criticism that he seems to get in the films is that he was too violent or brutal, and defied the outward trend that Autobots never cause harm unless all other options have been exhausted. So today that's what we're going to be looking at in this video. Looking at all of Optimus Prime's major fights in the 5 films, and assessing whether they were justified, or whether the Autobot Leader went off the rails. With that being said though guys, I hope if you enjoy more videos like this, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Now let us begin with the video. Oh, and for context, my criteria for this list is basically going off the quote that Optimus says in the Transformers Prime cartoon.
Autobots do not inflict harm unless all other options have been exhausted. It is what separates us from the Decepticons.
Really, what else could Optimus do in this scenario? Bone Crusher was endangering the lives of all the humans in the vicinity, the humans in the Autobots' care, as well as the Autobots themselves. A quick and swift kill by the hands of the Autobot Leader was almost goes without saying, especially since Megatron himself was now on the loose and all of the Decepticons were assembled together. To be honest, there was nothing about the Megatron fight scene that I really considered out of character for Optimus. He was clearly trying to stop Megatron by any means necessary. However, it's also very clear that he was statistically no match for the Decepticon leader. He was a much better match than any of the other Autobots, make no mistake, and Prime himself was probably the second most powerful Transformer in the film behind Megatron. However, it was clear that he wasn't going to stop Megatron, and it's such a shame. We can see Megatron overpower Optimus, his Ion Blaster doing very minimal damage to the Decepticon leader, as well as, obviously, Optimus himself being no match for the fusion cannon that Megatron has. And we even see this later on in the film, when he says to, Sam, that if he can't defeat Megatron, then Optimus was willing to sacrifice himself in order to prevent the Decepticon leader from getting his hands on the Allspark. Really, there's nothing violent or out of character for Optimus here. During the events of Revenge of the Fallen, Optimus does have a few more kills to his name, and the first one being Demolisher. However, realistically, whilst this was fairly violent I suppose, it's not actually that bad in context. You gotta keep in mind that Nest as well as Ironhide were aiming to defeat Demolisher without the public knowing about it, and this clearly doesn't go well as Demolisher escapes, endangering the lives of Nest soldiers as well as civilians in the process, throwing cars around like it's nothing. Optimus even politely requests that Demolisher stops. However, he didn't do it, meaning that Ironhide was actually the one to take out the leg supports of Demolisher, not Optimus. In fact, Optimus very courteously and honourably gives Demolisher the opportunity of speaking his last words. If Optimus truly was bloodthirsty or violent or anything like that, he would have just executed the Decepticon without giving him the opportunity to voice his last words. However, Optimus clearly does give him the opportunity, implying that he's not a complete twat. Grindor had literally captured the humans and brought them to an abandoned factory where they came face to face with Megatron, and also became experimented on. It should come as no surprise that Optimus and Bumblebee would therefore be there to rescue them, and Optimus came packing heat as he quickly dispatched both Starscream and Megatron. I don't see this as being violent, however, as I think we would all react very similarly if someone just kidnapped our friend and began experimenting on them. I mean, come on, what was Optimus supposed to do in this scenario? It was literally a 1v3 against some of the most powerful Decepticons, with their goal being to kill Optimus and capture Sam clearly by any means necessary. Fighting dirty was really all the options that Optimus had going for him. However, despite this, I still wouldn't consider him vicious. As you can clearly see, the wounds that he makes to the Decepticons were initially minor. However, he eventually loses his cool throughout the fight, and this was mainly after he got shot by the fusion cannon. As you can clearly see here, he does a number on the Decepticons, as the wounds that he inflicts on them become significantly more serious, as he beats the crap out of Megatron, cuts off Starscream's arm, and, you guessed it, cuts Grindor's head clean in half. I think that this was very unnecessary of a kill, and would be the first violent action that Optimus has. Cut to the end of the film and you have Optimus Prime's encounter with the Fallen as well as Megatron. And to be honest, let's assess the things that he does in this scene one by one. Well, first of all, he destroys the Star Harvester. This should be no surprise whatsoever, and I would consider it to be very much in canon with Optimus Prime's personality to destroy the artifact, as it was clearly being misused by the Decepticons and it had the power to wipe out all life on Earth, as well as by destroying the planet itself. so destroying it should be a given. Killing Megatron, or at the very least severely damaging him, again, this should go without saying. Megatron literally killed Optimus Prime earlier in the film, and Megatron also killed Sam, although I'm not sure if Prime would be aware of this. Regardless, Optimus should be fully aware of the powerhouse that Megatron is, so taking him out of the fight would be critical, especially for, ending the battle with few casualties as possible. And then finally defeating the Fallen. This should go without saying. He's one of the 13 original Primes and the original Decepticon. Leaving him alive would not be a good idea, especially given the power that this guy has, as he could literally ragdoll everyone just by, phasing into existence. Killing him almost goes without saying, and it would be very irresponsible of Optimus to leave him alive, given the threat and power that the Fallen has at his disposal. Starting things off with Dark of the Moon, we have Optimus Prime's first encounter against Shockwave, and to be completely honest, not very much happens in this fight that would be warranted as both vicious, out of character, or hell, even in character, as literally nothing happens in this fight scene. Optimus basically cuts off one of the Drillerbot's appendages, and that's literally all that happens in the fight scene. Other than that, Shockwave and Prime have a sort of mid-standoff against each other, but that's pretty much it. And aside from defending the humans, there's really nothing else out of character for Optimus here. Defending the humans should go without saying, as well as defending them by destroying the Decepticons. Yep, nothing wrong here. Again, everything that happens in this scene is very much in character for Optimus, as he's trying to protect the humans and, he's doing it with the element of surprise, so there really isn't any room for diplomacy or anything. The only thing that's even remotely out of character here is when Optimus says in a clearly pissed off voice that they will kill them all, referring to the Decepticons. However, given the scenario and context within the film, it shouldn't be too surprising. Let's be reasonably honest with ourselves here. There is nothing Optimus could have done in this scenario aside from destroy the Drillerbot. He clearly knows what a force of nature it is. He knows that it belongs to Shockwave, so by destroying the Drillerbot, he'll hopefully weaken Shockwave, one of the most powerful Decepticons on the field, not to mention that the Driller was endangering human lives. Destroying it should be very in character for Optimus, despite the fact that he was clearly pissed off in this fight scene. But again, that's more within context for the film rather than Optimus himself being out of character. I know that the video clip is called Optimus's Rage, but let's be honest here. When your team is hilariously outmatched and outgunned, and you're the most powerful member of either team, surely you would throw yourself onto the front lines and destroy as many of the enemy team as possible. Yeah, Optimus was pissed off in this example due to context within Dark of the Moon, but let's be honest. You would have done the exact same thing if you were in Optimus Prime's scenario. It should come as no surprise that Optimus kills Shockwave. I mean, there's no point doing diplomacy when someone's so cold and emotionless as Shockwave. And Optimus is fully aware of the powerhouse that Shockwave is, as he encountered him earlier on in the film, and he also had prior knowledge of Shockwave, likely spanning all the way back to the war on Cybertron. It should come as no surprise that he killed him for that very reason. I think that this scene is one of the more brutal, kills that Optimus has under his name. As in the novelization of Dark of the Moon, Megatron and Optimus actually do resolve their issues peacefully, with the Autobots staying on Earth and the Decepticons pissing off back to Cybertron. However, due to real-world reasons, the end of Dark of the Moon, the film, had to be changed, and it changed to a far more brutal display, where Optimus would instead decapitate the Decepticon leader, killing him once and for all, at least until the events of Age of Extinction. It's for these reasons that I would consider this to be one of the more brutal displays that Optimus has ever shown us in the films. I feel like this was also very brutal, as Sentinel Prime could have, he could have lived and carried out maybe a sentence for his crimes against humanity and Cybertron, but instead Optimus decides to execute him. Now, I understand, arguments in favour of both sides, as there's no doubt that Sentinel Prime poses an insane threat. I mean, he overpowered Optimus several times throughout the film. But regardless, I do think this was quite vicious and unnecessary death in my opinion. Oh look, it's Optimus Prime. Casually killing a shit ton of humans. Yep, I see nothing wrong with this in the slightest. This totally isn't out of character at all for Optimus Prime. And it totally isn't one of the main reasons why Age of Extinction is a bad Transformers film. Jokes aside though guys, I really do feel like Optimus could have handled this better. I know that, Cade and his family were in danger, But regardless, he could have handled this better, let's be honest. To be completely honest guys, I actually don't see anything wrong with this fight scene in terms of being out of character for Optimus. I mean, this metal monstrosity, Optimus later reveals that whilst he was fighting it, he sensed the presence of Megatron, and Optimus is fully aware of the power that Megatron possesses. Not to mention, he's also aware of what Galvatron is, given his experience with KSI. It's revealed that the humans can now create Cybertronian-esque, machines of their own, meaning that Optimus would not be holding back in the slightest, especially since he was protecting Tessa. But he doesn't do anything outright out of character in this scene. He's just fighting Galvatron, defending Tessa, and he gets shot in the back by Lockdown. But there really isn't anything out of character here, and he doesn't really do anything dirty in combat. So we can give him a pass here. Moving on to the fight between Optimus and Grimlock, there really isn't much about this fight scene that's out of character for Prime either. Aside from the mild death threat at the end, where he basically says, "You defend my family or you perish." Aside from that, I don't think there's anything too out of character for Optimus here, as the only reason they're fighting is due to Grimlock wanting to stay as leader, and Optimus essentially says, "You fight with us or you fight against me," which probably didn't go down too well with the Dinobot's ego. However, Optimus himself remains in character, and he openly states that he's offering the Dinobots freedom in exchange for their cooperation, which is something that Optimus Prime would 100% do. So this fight scene gets a green tick for me, in my opinion, as, at the very least from my perspective, there isn't anything wrong here and there isn't anything out of character for Optimus. Prime was going against Lockdown in this fight scene, the guy who was responsible for the death of Ratchet, as well as the death of, all of the Autobots that we grew to know and love and care for in the previous 3 films that hadn't already been killed off. It should come as no surprise that Prime would want this guy dead. However, the fact that, he kills him in such a gruesome fashion should possibly be a little out of character for Optimus. I mean, he could kill him a little bit, in a different way. Not to mention the fact that he literally kills him from behind where Lockdown couldn't defend himself, and then proceeds to talk about honor and stuff. It's a little bit weird and a bit of a contradiction, implying that this was indeed out of character for Optimus. Keep in mind that Optimus believes that, Quintessa was the one who brought about the destruction of Cybertron, so his reaction to immediately attack her upon seeing her should come as no surprise. Even if it is a little bit out of character for Optimus, I think I can create a pass on this one, as we've seen that consistently throughout the series, Optimus does tend to lose his cool when people endanger either the Earth or Cybertron. So his reaction here is kind of understandable, even if it's not what we would expect from Optimus Prime. Including any showings from Nemesis Prime would inherently be pointless, as Optimus wasn't in his right frame of mind during any of those showings. So now we'll look at his encounter against Infernicus. I think it was incredibly brutal the way he dispatched the Decepticon Combiner. I mean, he literally rammed his sword through the Titan's head, and then proceeded to take them all out with a single swing of his sword. I mean, he didn't torture any of them or anything like that, and the way he dispatched of them was just badass. However, I feel like in other medias, Optimus wouldn't have done this. Compared to Megatron's death in Dark of the Moon, this was actually quite merciful by Optimus. The only brutal thing that he really does in this scene is cutting off Megatron's arm. However, this is pretty excusable given the fact that attached to said arm was a fusion cannon, and Megatron was intending on using said cannon to kill Bumblebee, one of Optimus's oldest friends. So Optimus's response here should be no surprise and isn't really out of the blue. Everything I mentioned about Optimus Prime's previous encounter with Quintessa basically applies here, but tenfold, as Optimus is now 100% certain that this bitch sure as hell ain't his creator and would do more harm than good. So his response is pretty much, what you would expect. However, it's actually Bumblebee who kills her and not Prime. So he doesn't do anything brutal in this fight. So there you guys have it. Those were the 20 or so action scenes that Optimus Prime has throughout the original 5 Transformers films made by Michael Bay. The only question really to ask now is, after reviewing all of these fight scenes, is Optimus Prime in the films as brutal as everyone says he is? And the answer to that is yes. It really does depend on, the context as well as how much you're willing to give him. This is undeniably one of the more brutal, bloodthirsty, and quick to kill Optimus Primes that we've ever seen, and he's vastly different. The main reason why I think this is, however, is just because of the target audience. This version is clearly aimed towards, you know, a more mature audience. And this is obvious, you know, with the swearing, things like that, you know. It's clearly not marketed towards kids in the same way that maybe Transformers Animated or Transformers Prime is. But with that being said, you know, Optimus, the things that he does in the films aren't exclusive to the films. We've seen in, you know, Transformers Prime, Optimus do stuff like, you know, cutting off Megatron's arm. We see in Transformers Animated, you know, in the finale against Megatron, he's clearly not shy when it comes to hurting characters. So I think that in terms of some of the stuff he does in the films, he would do them in other medias. However, I think that just due to the age rating and target audience, he's naturally going to be a lot more brutal in the films because they can get away with shit like that. With that being said though, guys, this is just my own personal takes on the matter. If you think that Optimus Prime was a cute fluffy bunny, or if you think that he was a merciless killing machine, let me know down below. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll talk to you all later. This is Lewis on the Gaming Rift, and have a nice weekend everyone.